If you have experienced both day camp and resident camp, you probably agree that a great day camp captures the sleepaway camp spirit. This episode, our third annual episode on this topic, attempts to solve the riddle of what is the sleepaway camp spirit and what can we do in our meager little day camp setting between the limited hours, staff going home every night, and kids ratting us out to the parents. The answer is we can do a whole lot. This is the Day Camp Pod. Welcome back, my friends, to the Day Camp Podcast. I'm Andy Pritikin, Director of Liberty Lake in the Philly suburbs of New Jersey.
I'm Sam Thompson from Crystal Lake Park District, Crystal Lake, Illinois.
I am Tiffany Grattan McDuffie, founder of Purposeful Play in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and Chicago, Illinois.
And we are Day Camp pros dedicated to the professional development of our colleagues, discussing topics and best practices that can improve our organizations and ourselves. So our first ever episode of the Day Camp Podcast, way back in 2018, I guess, was with Kurt Jackson, and we did the Sleepaway Camp Spirit. Then last year, episode 21, we did it with Dane and Jamie Pickles of Everwood. And today we are joined by Sam Borek from Woodmont and Gordon Josey from Breezemont. So I have deemed this episode the Mont-sters of Camp. The Mont-sters of Day Camp, right?
Oh, we got it, Andy.
Remember the Monster of the Rock tour, right? Right. Two seasoned camp pros who have worked and lived on both sides of the camp spectrum, up in the woods overnight and running day camps in the New York suburbs. So welcome, gentlemen, to the Day Camp Pod. I was just telling Sam how we got great feedback on our Day Camp Kitchen Pod, and we may have to come back and do a full one with that. But Gordon, first timer on the Day Camp Pod. So you know what that means, my friend. Nobody knows who you are. All right. So, because people will be listening to this in Edinburgh, Like this is a worldly podcast. So so can you please tell, you get 2 minutes, okay? I'm putting you on the spot, I know, to give you like your origin story, how you got into camping, how you got to Breezemont. Ready, get set, go.
Well, thank you, Andy. Thank you for inviting me.
Oh, you're wasting your time on that stuff.
Yeah, but I have to apologize.
30 seconds left, Gordon. 30 seconds.
So here we go. I came over. I was one of these guys who came over from Scotland to work for one summer in 1990. Bad teeth, bad clothing, funny words, and I just fell in love with camp.
What camp was that? The Indian Head?
It was IHC, Andrew.
Oh, pardon.
IHC.
Camp
yeah,
IHC.
It was Indian Head Camp. Came to work for the summer, and then I stayed.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been here ever since, and that's what I do. I was in the day camp, sleepaway camp. I bought my first sleepaway camp in 2000. And then I moved over to, as I affectionately say, the dark side in 2013. So I've been the owner and director of Breezemont since 2013.
So it wasn't that long ago. So let me just ask you this first, Gordon. So when you were like, okay, I'm going to make the jump, I'm going to do this Breezemont thing, I'm going to do the day camp thing, right? Like, what now do you think are like the biggest misconceptions from the sleepaway camp world to the day camp world?
It's important for people to know that immigration knows Gordon stayed. He didn't just stay. He's allowed to be here. Sorry, Gordon.
Oh, I am. I married into the country.
Right.
Well,
what was the biggest surprise to you, in this day camp world?
Two things: how hard you work and how long you work. And a third thing, just how frantic everything is. It's just boom, 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 go home. It really is, like, as I now say to my sleepaway friends, it's like, you get up in the morning, you have breakfast, then you do the old clean up the cabin, and you have 3 activities in the morning, then you have 2 hours off, right. Lunch and rest hour, and then you start, and it's just, the pace is just so much slower.
Yeah, I remember when I worked at North Shore Day Camp, when Jay Jacobs bought it, I would on the weekends go visit Tyler Hill and Timberlake West and regular Timberlake. And I remember going up there and I was like, I can't believe you guys just like hang out in rocking chairs and talk to each other like during the day, you know?
Oh,
Like, can't believe you have that time to do that. You know, like I'm always on the go, like I'm eating on the go. I don't even sit down and eat lunch, you know? When I try to explain it to my sleepaway camp friends, I say, remember when we were children, I used to drink orange juice out of that concentrate, you know? Day camp is camp concentrate, right? There's no water added, right? It's just right there, right? And I think that, you know, part of that sleepaway camp spirit, now we're segueing into actual content, okay, is putting some of that sort of that flexible time in, right? Is not, you know, I think it's easy to fall into a trap, especially for people who have not been to sleepaway camp, to fall into a trap of that over programming and every second we're doing something kind of thing. When you talk to somebody who went to sleepaway camp and you say, what are your favorite parts of sleepaway camp? And they say those informal times you just mentioned there, Gordon, right? The rest hour and the power hour and the whatever, and that, you know, playing Uno in the bunk and things like that meant more to them than playing baseball on the field.
Yep.
And you know what I think is interesting, if I can jump in, is I think that we all kind of learned that lesson in the summer of 2020 with the COVID restrictions, with guidelines that came out that, you know, when we talked as camp directors, and Gordon and I have talked about this, part of what we all learned is we all kind of took a deep breath this summer because we had to, right? We were forced by the guidelines to wash hands more often, to do hand sanitize, to keep groups more local, to not mix and do these big electives, to not bring in outside companies and do carnivals and do these big over-the-top things. So we all kind of learned to sit in that rocking chair a little bit this summer and found that our kids and parents have never been happier. And part of that is they were out of their house for the first time in months. But also I think they felt that kind of deep breath and really enjoyed the experience more because they were just able to be, as opposed to be running from one place to the next.
Right. So it could be said that's the sleepaway camp spirit, in a way, is more of what the essence of camp is.
Right.
Right.
Yes, for
funny
sure.
because
Yep.
even I didn't imagine that, right? So, and I've only really done day camp. I shared right before we started that I've only been to one sleepaway camp for 1 week in my entire life. So my experience had either been day camp or nothing. And so when Gordon first started to speak and he was suggesting that day camp was harder, I just never imagined that. You know, when my camp got accredited by ACA, I always thought like ACA accreditation was only for sleepaway camps. And I imagined sleepaway camps to be so much more elaborate, but just that quick aha, you know, that you guys are saying, you know, day camp is super over programmed and it is like boom, 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 next. And I think even another thing that I'm just thinking of is, the kids are so easily bored, you know, like I'm bored. They have this on-demand need for constant entertainment. And so to Sam's point, there was a pause, not just for day camps, but for the entire world, you know, where we were set to spend time with ourselves and figure out what we liked and all of that. So, hey, I'm hosting, but I'm learning also.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
Well, this is like the point of the show. Every single show we've had since last summer, we take a moment and we say, hey, day camp people, this is your time to pivot away from your crazy ass carnivals and all this other stuff, this over the top stuff that you've been doing, because first of all our costs are going up and it's hard to even afford to do those things. And secondarily, they're just unnecessary. You know, they always were in a way, but it's the camp's fault, because the camps tend to market is like, you're going to be doing all these things, you know, and then we create the expectations of these little monsters, you know, and I mean the families in total that come to us, and that when there's 10 minutes of nothing going on, they're losing their mind because they're bored. I agree, Tiff.
And I read something recently that said, like, I do all this talk on self-care for women and moms in particular, and they're just like, if you are not comfortable spending time alone and or with yourself, that is a reflection of exactly what you need to be doing and how you need to get more comfortable, just like in your Zen zone and, you know, those sorts of things. And I think that we've definitely tried to implement some sleepaway camp things in my day camp, especially because it's urban. But when I thought of that, I never thought about like the slowing down. I just thought like the songs, the camaraderie, like the spirit of camp. But even like we were very heavily field trip based. We took a field trip every week. There were times when we were going to like Six Flags every week at one point when we had gotten some grants, and just not having to run like that. Just great point.
Stop feeding the beast.
So, you know, it's interesting. The sleepaway camp I worked at in Maine is known as one of the nicer facility camps in the country.
Understatement of the podcast.
Well, Andy, I'm an understated kind of guy. But what I always found interesting when we were talking to staff in particular, because I did a lot of the staffing, was, you know, the sales pitch to them wasn't the facilities. You know, we weren't saying like, hey, come to our beautiful 15 tennis courts and we get new ski boats every year. It's always about the who, you know, it's the people. And that's a big sell to sleepaway camp, which we converted to day camp. Was doesn't matter what facilities we have. It doesn't matter what events we do. It doesn't matter the new thing we just built. It's the who. And that's what the kids go home talking about. They don't say, oh my God, the go-kart was beautiful today. They talk about their counselor. They talk about their friends. They talk about, you know, the bus ride and how fun it was with the bus counselor and what they did.
Right.
That's what translates to both sleepaway and day camp is it's making sure you have great people. Then the rest of the stuff kind of falls into place.
So Sam, how many years now you've been at Woodmont?
This will be our 15th summer.
Woo,
Wow.
baby. So
Wow.
so when you were given the green light and you were like, okay, Sam and Alicia, you guys are gonna run a day camp all by yourselves, right? So what was going through your Rolodeck in your brain of like all your camp experience from sleepaway camp land of what you could bring to day camp to make it that extra special thing?
So when we first had the opportunity to come to what was then called Candy Mountain, which is now Woodmont, they had candy canes everywhere. It was Candy Land. It's great if you're 3. You get beat up if you're 9. But different times. But my first reaction to my wife was, I have no interest in working at a day camp. So that 15 years later, we know who won that argument. But my background was all sleepaway camp. I grew up going to sleepaway camp. I worked after law school full time at sleepaway camp. So to me, that's the only thing that was real camp. You know, you have to go away, you have to leave your family, you have to leave your friends, you have to be gone for a long time, and that's camp. Everything else is babysitting. And I wrote an article in Camping Magazine, and that was quoted saying day camp is babysitting. That didn't go over well with camp families.
I think a lot of directors feel that way when they first go from resident camp to day camp, that they're taking the second seat, you know, they're kind of stepping down, and it is what you make of it. And you can do all the same things. And so switching the attitude has been difficult, I think.
Yeah, for sure. And that was ingrained in me. That was my attitude coming in, was this is just babysitting. And I realized very quickly, Andy, to your question was, you know, we can create the memories and experiences that come from sleepaway camp, even in 8 hours. And even though the kids go home at night to get ruined by their parents, you know, we can do all of the great things for them at camp and then start fresh. The challenge with day camp is the mold starts fresh again the next day. You put all this work in, they go home and they come back, you're like, really? We made such progress. What happened to
I
5 hours?
You're dropping such truth.
So give me one specific thing, Sam, before we go to Gordon on this. All right.
Of what we did at day camp.
Give me like a nugget, one of the nuggets.
I think one of the big things that we brought from sleepaway camp was having a time where the entire camp is together. And I think that's, you know, camps, we'll call it flagpole, cove, morning rally, whatever it may be. And I think that's a big part of what brings the camaraderie and spirit of sleepaway camp. That makes you feel like you're part of something bigger than yourself. So that was one of the big things we did, is every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, we had what we called morning rally. The whole camp was together. Alicia and I were on the stage. We were leading songs. Staff were involved. We did games. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, they did it by their own age group, so they could do things more age appropriate for whatever their age was. And every day started with that sense of community of, we're starting together, we're doing this, now go forth and have a great day. But we built this together at the beginning. And I think that was a big thing that sleepaway camps do after breakfast. You know, they all get together and do that kind of rallying piece. And at day camp, it's hard because you don't have a lot of time. So Andy, to your point, you're rushing. We made a concerted effort and said, this isn't too important to not do. And so we're going to change the schedule. We're going to push swim back. We're going to do everything we can so that everyone is there together for those 15, 20 minutes. And then we start with as a community. Right.
It's a very important point that Sam made there, in that if something is a priority, if something is important, you make time for it. You make sure it happens. You can't, it's a very, very big thing in the day camp world to make the excuse to say that we have no time.
No time.
right? And that is BS, because you can lose a period, you can lose a half a period, you could just do it on Tuesdays and Thursdays, just like you said. Like, it's about creativity. So just one little follow-up about the assembly thing, Sam, goes, by the way, we're fortunate that in Sam and Gordon are two courageously awesome guys that ran camp in 2020, this past summer. Okay. So what aspects of the assembly thing were you able to fiddle together, unless you don't want to talk about it on public?
Well, we to the same point, when we talked with our administrative team, we all agreed that that was a piece we weren't willing to give up, regardless of what the guidelines were. We had to figure it out. So what we typically did is we met at our theater. And in 2019, we met at the theater, and the whole camp was there, tush to tush, 25 kids on a bench. 3-year-olds have little tushes, so you can fit a lot on a bench. So we shoved them all into the theater. We all met there, and that was, stadium seating. It's all set. So what we did for this summer was we had everyone on the middle of the baseball field, spread out with arms in your group. You had your arms spread out to make sure you weren't within touching distance of anyone near you. Then there were 10 feet in between each group. So each group knew where they were sitting. Alicia and I were in the middle of the field with portable speakers, and we ran it from there. So was it the same? No, but did it have the same effect? Absolutely. Even if they didn't get and hear every word, because depending on where you were sitting, the speakers may not hit. The idea was we're all starting the day together, doing this, watching this, being a part of it, and then you're going to go from there. So we still did it, just with big modifications.
Hashtag creativity, baby.
Yeah,
that's great. We did a similar thing. Gordon, what about you? What aspects did you want to bring from West Virginia? Is that where your camp was?
Yes, it's the only one I could. It's the only place I could afford.
Yeah.
When you come over with a backpack, you don't exactly have deep pockets, So I bought 39 campers. It was fantastic. And I was young enough. I'm like, this cannot fail. No one told me about cash flow. So anyway, so yes, but it was in a way just like Sam. Like, you don't know what you don't know. So I walked into this day camp that had been around since 1936, and there was no flagpole or morning assembly. There was no songs. There was no, it was, to me, the very essence of camp, as we're all saying, is not that, we have a world champion water skiing instructor, it's that you're out in the boat with your friends. So the gathering together was so important. And the downtime, of course, but also the silly songs, the birthday song, the lost tooth song, you did really well, but you dropped the ball song, and there was a song for absolutely everything. And so that's what I, brought in to Breezeman, and I'm continuing to do it. Now, as we know, with all sort of traditions and cultures, it has to be authentic. So we've had to sort of work at this, become part of our culture. So in our song program now, we teach all the kids our camp songs. So then they know the camp songs, because we're not having campfires once or twice a week to learn them along. But that's what we do now. So in the morning, we all meet as a camp and get everyone excited for the day. We do, that's when we celebrate birthdays, and we have, the whole camp sings the birthday song to the kids. And then, so it was just so important to me that I brought the things that I felt were important, and the things that made sort of what was the secret sauce of Sleepaway Camp to day camp.
Right. And little kids are they're so pliable, they're so fungible, they're like little sponges, right? And what I've found is that in a lot of day camps where they don't have this culture, like when you first got to your camp there and you needed to put all these things in, you have to do a lot of stuff in staff training and teach people this stuff, right? And you have to have people who are willing to be silly, right, and be goofballs. And some people, especially in areas where people aren't, if you hire people that didn't go to camp themselves, right? They don't quite understand that, okay, and you come in for this like, stuffy interview and they're giving you all the right answers about youth development and all that stuff. And meanwhile, it's like, can you let your hair down and be an absolute goof? Because that's part of that, right? Because if you're leading a goofy little song like the Itsy Bitsy Spider or whatever the heck it is, Princess Pat, all that stuff, like these are things that little kids just love, but they're hard to get a bunch of college kids to learn right off the bat if they didn't come up through that system.
Yeah.
We
almost exclude, let's put it this way. We're very lucky because we're in a camp-rich environment here. So almost everyone we employ went to camp. So it's much easier to start that culture because it was just part of of course you go to camp and it doesn't matter if you're, you're playing high school soccer or high school baseball or high school football. I go to camp, you sing songs at camp. That's just part of the culture.
Mm-hmm.
So it was much easier. It was like everything else. It's much harder for the older staff to get on board because that was not the culture before.
Well, Andy, I think you know this also from our study at ACA. Part of the excitement of being a camp director is taking those staff that didn't go to camp and having them drink the Kool-Aid and seeing how much it impacts them and how it changes their life. And in ACA, we partnered with National to do a longitudinal study of staff and what it meant to them for their college career, for their employment afterwards. And those that experience camp, even as just staff members, do better in all of those experiences because they've opened up their eyes and their horizons and they found parts of themselves that they didn't know existed. And to see them come back year after year and go, God, camp really changed who I was and who I am is one of the amazing things about being a camp director and working in the industry that we do.
They've had to think on their feet. They've had to compromise, work with a group, all those soft skills that are what employers are looking for.
Absolutely.
So before we go on, I just want to, we got to do a little break here for one of our sponsors. So I think you guys know pretty well, AM Skyer, right? The fine purveyor of insurance, right? The strategic partner for many of the finest camps in America. For 101 years, AM Skyer is supporting camps in PR, legal, health, facility management, general safety, and more. Experience the AM Skyer difference at amskyer.com. So I just got a question for you guys. When have you used AM Skyer in your past years at your day camp that they've sort of snapped into action for you?
2 months ago, during the winter when the storm came in, Isis, whatever, I can't pronounce it, but
Isaiah, something like that.
Yeah. Isaiah. We lost 3 days of camp. We lost power, we lost trees, we lost tents, we lost a bunch of other equipment in camp. And Skyer was fantastic. They were there. They were on. Jeff was on the phone with me right away. We got money before we asked for it. They sent us a check saying, "Here, just take this so that you can get back up and running."
Wait, I think the best part of your story was that a tree fell across your driveway.
Correct.
So even if he wanted to have camp, he couldn't.
There was a tree blocking the driveway, another one on the power line entering into camp, and then another one blocking the street to get into camp. But again, talking about staff, we had staff that parked a mile away to walk down the hill down power lines to get into camp to help clear sticks and branches. And these were not longtime camp people. These were staff that were with us for a year or two that just were so dedicated. And Skyer was on top of it. We got everything repaired, everything we needed, and all of the money back to replace everything within a month. They were fantastic.
That's great. Have you any such luck with you, Gordon, with Skyer?
Yeah,
storms ruin your camp, Gordon. Any luck on your end?
I wish I could use Skyer more, shall we say. I've been with them for 20 years, and I've been lucky that I've not had any big claims. That tree never seems to fall in the building that I need that tree to fall in the building. But no, look, they're an excellent company, an excellent family, and there's a reason we've been with them for so long. So thank you to them.
Yeah, no doubt about it. All right, so back to the regular scheduled stuff here. So let's talk about special events, spirit events, right? Like, to me, one of the most important parts of Sleepaway Camp is that every single night I was going to be doing something and I didn't even know what the heck it was, but it was going to be fun. You know, actually it might stink, but it's going to try to be fun, right? And that kind of unpredictability, right? You know, I think, again, day camps, if you schedule everything out and it's all sitting there on the calendar and it's all like you're in a diner and this is what it is, you lose a little bit of unpredictability, right? And I think that, like, you know, things like Color War, of course, and stuff like that, and what's it called, Gold Rush, like, and some of the, just even some of these special events that just have a weird name, you don't even know what it's going to be. So what do you guys think about that kind of thing?
So I have two thoughts there. One is part of the challenge of day camp, which I learned from coming to Sleepaway Camp, is when you do pop-up special events, you could piss off a lot of people. Because if they didn't sign up for that week and their kid was in Disney and found out that they missed a special event at camp that wasn't on the calendar, and you get this phone call saying, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I spent $10,000 at Disney. And the only thing I heard the whole time is how she missed, you know, Park Day at Woodbine. So I learned that you have to balance putting stuff on the calendar so people know what they're signing up for and what weeks are going on, and then still being able to, you know, pop up some unique special things. And then the other thing that I think I took from Sleepaway Camp is authenticity. Kids, and at Sleepaway Camp, your job is to build this new world for them, right? You have them the entire summer and you can do whatever you want. So if you're doing a football league, then get uniforms and get announcers in announcing booths and do it under the lights and do it on Sunday night or Monday night and call it, you know, Sunday night football, because kids love authenticity. And that's what I worked on a lot when I was at Sleepaway Camp. And I think we brought that to Woodmont also, was when you're doing a special event, be authentic, make it feel like the special event. So if you're doing Luau Day, when they get off the bus, put a lei around their neck, have Hawaiian music playing everywhere, have decorations up, make it feel like you are at a luau, because part of what we're doing at camp is getting away from reality. You're coming to camp, you come up that hill, you enter the camp, and now you're ours. So when you're here, we're going to make it feel like whatever it is we're trying to do. So if it's a dress up day, every staff member and everyone there is dressed up like a theme from an 80s movie, because that's what we're doing and everyone is deep into it and it feels like you're part of it, and kids thrive off of that. They really get into it a ton. And to your point, Andy, at Sleepaway Camp, we're having these special events every night. The best ones feel like you're part of something that is really happening.
Yeah, that's excellent. And by the way, last week we had Kim Aycock and Jolly Corley, and we were talking about staff stuff. And this is the part of the conversation that we always say, and do this at staff orientation too, because it's the same thing, right? Treat your staff just like your campers. So shout out to those lovely ladies. Gordon, what are your thoughts on this topic?
No, just, just as Sam was saying, it's, they didn't used to have college days or Olympics or Color War. So we introduced that. And it's incredible just seeing the 3 and 4 year olds getting into it, and on the group, they're on the blue team and the white team, and they come off the bus and they've got their t-shirt on, and and it's just so part. One thing that I really did trip myself up over was I always, at Sleepaway Camp, there's always time to like go and you can just like run an audible. You can just, we'll worry about that. We'll worry about that tomorrow. We've got 3 or 4 hours. Whereas at day camp, no. So yes, it has to be on the calendar. It has to be well planned out. We do Tuesdays. Tuesdays we do dress up days. So it's a day we all dress, everyone dresses up. But then, so they say they dress up as a pirate, or it might be silly sock day. That's great. But then by the second period, because they had swim first period, they're now out of their costumes. So I thought this was, silly sock day or pirate day, or, so we marry our program up with the day. So they know if it is, Hawaiian day, they go to the when they have lunch, they're having, coconuts and pineapples. They're doing activities throughout the day to marry up with the dress up day, so it does continue the entire day. And to Sam's point, that it's like camp is the place that you can make so special. And I mean, let's be honest, we'll have hundreds of children and staff walking around backwards because it's backwards day, and wearing their t-shirts backwards, and they're some of them wearing their shoes backwards, and they think that's normal. They think that's just a normal day at camp, and that's just what's so special about camp and what we do.
Yeah, I mean, camp should be about doing things that you don't normally do, right? You don't normally do at home. You don't normally do at school, right?
So, Andy, I have a question for everybody, because I'm curious when you say that, especially. I don't dress up for Halloween because I feel like I get all my dress ups out of the way in the summer, that I don't need another reason to dress up. And I find that everyone else, it's the one time they get to dress up is Halloween. And they're like, you're the camp guy. Where's your costume? Like, dude, I wear a costume 20 days of the summer. I don't need it now. I've already gotten out of my system. Do you guys dress up for Halloween? I'd love to hear if I'm the only camp person that doesn't dress up for Halloween.
No, you're the only humbug out there, obviously. But I know what you're saying. We have similar, because my humbug is November in the house. We're not allowed to sing camp songs. The kids go to Sleepaway, and we are not allowed to start a conversation with at camp.
At camp. Yeah.
You can tell the camp story, but it has to be at dance clans, at school, at soccer. But you cannot, because we talk about camp all day, and we go home, we hear about camp all now. In 3 years' time, when they're all out and hopefully at college, I'm sure I'll miss that. But right now, it's no camp November.
And Andy, I've seen you in your kilts, so I know you dress up all the time. You're an exception.
Well, Brandy comes into my office at about 7 in the morning and hands me something and says, "Here, wear this." That's usually how it goes.
Sometimes you can't stop camp in the winter, though. You'll be doing the dishes, or the kids will be doing the dishes, and they're humming, and pretty soon you realize they're humming a camp song, and it just keeps coming out.
Well, I know this is not everyone, and I realize that we're very lucky. We're just outside New York, and it's a somewhat affluent population. But when I'm touring people around camp, I'm like, we'll spend $100,000 plus on new tennis courts, and the most the most popular activities at camp. The first one is Gaga. That pit got $850. Fishing, they love, and s'mores at the campfire.
Right.
Because it's about the relationships, about, to your point, Andy, about things they can't normally do. They don't come to camp to become better tennis players. They can go to a tennis club for that. So
right.
it's
and the fact is, talking about Gaga and things like that, right? And you could throw in there pickleball and wall ball. We built a wall just to play wall ball. Foursquare is huge at my camp. Wiffle ball is huge at so many camps. Unfortunately, kids just don't play these things that much anymore.
No.
And recess is something that just barely exists in schools. It's more like a survival of the fittest 20 minutes. So,
and now, Andy, by the way, I know your kids are out of elementary school and grown up and all over the world, but there is no recess at schools right now because of COVID. They're not mixing. Right. My kids are in school for 3.5 hours and then they're done. So they're literally, as in 2019, there was like 30 minutes of recess a week. Now there is zero going on at all. I think that, I know we're shifting a little bit, but camp, Sleepaway Camp, Day Camp, all of our camps will be so much more important this upcoming summer because of what our kids would have gone through this year. So whether it be day or Sleepaway Camp, the value that we'll be able to bring of just socialization, right? I mean, that's the one piece you brought up early, Andy, is what goes on at Sleepaway Camp is, Gordon, you said it too, at rest hour, at free play, sitting around the cabin. That's another piece that we all found last summer at Day Camp that we were able to reintroduce was kind of like a hangout time, like just having some downtime. And as camp directors, we're always nervous that that's when things are going to go wrong. right? Like they can't leave the counselors alone without a plan. What are they going to do? And they can figure it out. You know, they figure out that sometimes it's just good to sit around and, you know, just talk and be.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I've
You know-
said it, we've done episodes on it. I mean, we at Liberty Lake, we have a 45-minute period every single day. We call it free choice, but it's basically free play. And I am a big believer from preschool all the way up to teenagers. And I gave a session about it at Tri-State a couple of years ago. And in the middle of the session, this woman raises her hand. She's from a pretty prominent camp. And she says, I don't understand. She's sort of like what you were just saying, Sam. She says, don't the kids just like kill each other, you know, during this time? Like she said that, like in all seriousness. And I was like, when the kids go to baseball, do they pick up the bats and just start hitting each other at your camp? I mean, no, because like you put in like, you know, some of them rules, you know, some like basic like levels of decorum.
It's not Lord of the Flies. It's still supervised.
Right. But I think that you said that fear, you used the word fear, and that is 100% what it is, right? It's a day camp like Achilles thing, right? It's like it's something that it's not even a real fear. It's like almost like a made up fear, because day camp program people take solace. They feel comfortable when everything is laid out and everything is gridded out, right? And we know what these 40 kids are doing, these 20 kids, and okay, we're good, right?
Well,
as opposed to, okay, now we have 120 kids in this area and they're just going to play for the next 45 minutes. And here's the things that they can do, like that unsettling unpredictability. Most day camp people who never went to resident camp have never felt anything like it.
Yeah,
well, that was one of the things we did this year, and it was incredible because we had to do, as we all know, we had to do cleaning, and we had to, you know, we had all these procedures we had to fit into the day. So we had 30 minutes of contact time and 15 minutes to get from one activity to the next. It was game changing. One, it gave them, you know, people weren't late for activities. And when they got to the activity, if they got there a few minutes early, they had done structured play, which was like mind blowing, you know. And the counselors, you know, we taught the counselors games, whether it was duck, duck, goose, or whether it was ladders, or, you know, and we would try to explain to the boys, you can actually just sit down and talk, which is pretty cool as well, you know. So, but yeah, just adding that time in, just adding that sort of 5 minutes in between periods, give them time to just, as we were saying with Sleepaway, time to just be themselves and be together, as opposed to it was always, okay, now we're going to tennis, okay, pick up yourself, and now we're going to swim, and, you know, now we're going to be late for whatever. And it made such a difference in the camp. You know, I know this is changing from what we're talking about, but if we had to change 80% of what we did this summer, we're keeping 60% of it, which is, you know, like, when this is all over and done with, I do think that there's going to be a lot of good things come out of it as far as how we run our, you know, our camps moving forward.
Yeah. Tiff, you were going to say something before.
I was. It was really for Gordon. I know he mentioned, like, you know, he has these magnificent tennis courts and people don't come for that. They come for the relationships, etc. And I do feel that way about, like, I had to create that spirit within my camp, but I run a sports camp. So I always call myself the accidental camp director. I'm a CPA by trade, turned entrepreneur, and we just loved sports. And so there was really just this dynamic missing, or there was just this pay to play culture that existed, and we wanted to eliminate that in the city and really provide an experience where all kids could be included and see different sports of all sorts, for lack of a better word. So really for us, kids came for the sport, and we had to teach them the gaga ball, get them into, you know, Foursquare, and kind of like reverse engineer the empathy and the problem solving and the conflict resolution, those sorts of things. I'm curious on your suggestions for people who don't have a sleepaway background, who are starting camps, and because I'm really big on teaching people to start camps just based on their interests. So I coach people who want to start like a photography camp or an entrepreneurship camp or what have you. But I believe that no matter what industry like your niche is, there are kids who are interested in that thing. And I believe that the camp spirit is a way to teach all those soft skills that we're talking about, no matter how kids approach.
Yeah, and no matter what the setting looks like.
Yeah.
Right, camp is a feeling, not a physical space.
Right?
Yeah.
But what would be your suggestion for people who are not coming from a camp from a traditional camp space, like kind of teaching a trade for how to implement the magic of camp? I personally had to go to an ACA convention in order to even like get that was the thing. But I don't think that most of my peers, like they don't go to ACA. They're just like, I'm teaching kids how to do photography. That's it. So like, what would be your thoughts around that?
So what I found successful with that is, I normally have, let's just take over tennis, an excellent tennis instructor, and she's wonderful, loves camp, does a great job. But this year, for various reasons, she didn't return, and I found my physical education teachers who could teach an activity and make it fun. Because for our kids, when they are 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 years old, it's not so much about the hard skills. Whereas every year I've had a tennis instructor, a basketball instructor, a baseball and coach, and I actually found and we moved a few people around because of what we saw, that it was just better to have someone who could teach a few different activities, bring empathy, bring joy, bring, even some skills or some drills from other sports into that sport. And what a difference it was. What a difference. And the kids had fun because they weren't doing their their classical tennis lessons. Because I do feel in schools now, when we grew up, it was more sports. Whereas even if you speak to your kids what they did in school today, it wasn't what they didn't do a block of basketball, a block of tennis, a block of soccer. It was more just group games, group movement and things like that. Obviously, if you have to find them, but that's certainly something I saw this year in abundance.
Tiffany, you know what I would say is camp is not a place, but it's a feeling. So I would talk to that person who, let's say they wanted to do a photography camp, and I would say to them, where or when was a time that you felt connected, that you felt like yourself, like you felt like you made great friends, like you felt like you could be who you wanted to be? Think about where that was. It doesn't have to be at camp, but it could be anywhere. And then bottle that and bring that every day to camp, and make sure kids feel that every single day, that feeling, wherever you had it, do it every day for 7 days a week or 5 days a week or whatever it is, and you'll create camp. And that's the feeling. It doesn't matter where you do it, in a photography lab, on a tennis court, in a gym, on a computer, wherever it may be. It's let the kids feel that and feel great, and they're being their best selves, and then you create camp.
No, I love that. I think I'm always full of quotes. So I tell people like gamify it, make it fun and it'll get done. And one of the things that came to mind is when you were just talking about the feelings, is like people will not forget, they might forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel. And I think that is so very true, because we did start out as very skilled based, and kids would just get burned out. And then you would find like there were siblings who were there just because their brother liked basketball and they didn't. And so for that kid, it was like they were missing an opportunity. And for our coaches who were typically like athletes or collegiate athletes, it was a reconditioning for them. So even earlier when you guys were talking about how you teach your counselors the same way that you teach the kids. It's very, very true. We had you know, the average, especially African American basketball collegiate athlete has so much swag that they think they're not singing any sort of camp game, but at the end of the camp season, they're just singing "I want a pepperoni pizza with a whole lot of cheese" and banging chairs, you know, doing the craziest things ever. So I definitely think that it transcends. And I think they also would all attest to the fact that they gained a lot of like life skills that they could take in terms of resiliency and the ability to bounce back. And also they learned to take direction better because they were now placed in this position where you might not have kids who like a sport. And you had to, it was like that psychology behind the negotiation of how you get a kid to listen to you. So I think they garnered even more respect for like their parents, their teachers, etc., their, you know, employer. And so just, I love that. I did have one more question, and not to like hijack Andy's spotlight, but I think, I don't know if your camps, I take it that they're probably outside of the city. So do you all bus kids in for the most part?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they bust, they bust from the city too.
Okay, so I'm wondering, what do you do around like diversification of your staff? And I'm asking that because Gordon mentioned that he's lucky, and I definitely, you know, like when I recruit now, I try to recruit people who have sleepaway experience because it's just something in them. You know what I mean? Like it's just something that they know that no matter how I try to emulate it, I can't exactly do it. But there was when there was all of the racial tensions earlier in the year, and we were talking a bunch in the camp space about diversifying, I would always tell people, like, it's very hard to get the average Black college student. You know, they don't care if camp is a real job. Like, you want us to drive to where? Through some woods, across some water? We think you're gonna hang us and drown us? Like, we're not going. And so they had to work very hard to change their culture so that people felt included, etc. I think it's a lot easier, at least in my opinion and what I've heard from peers, for to get that diversity in a day camp setting, because they get to go home, they haven't experienced camp, they haven't grown up in camp, it's not something normal for them. But again, when I think of day camps, I think of ones that are positioned in an urban area, very accessible. With your camps being, you know, still having to be bussed out to them, like what have you seen or what efforts have you made to not just focus on, you know, people who have grown up in camps, because a lot of minorities have not.
Well, the other piece,
very difficult.
Well, the piece you didn't mention is that camps don't pay well, right? Just to put it out there, to be very, very frank, you know, to work at camp, you're not making a lot of money. And so there are times that we go into areas and do a great job recruiting. And then when it comes to the last part of the interview and they're like, all right, Sam, sign me up. This sounds great. Oh, wait, I'm making how much? And how long is my day? And I'm taking a bus an hour out of the city. So I'm leaving my house at 7:15. I'm getting home at 5:30 and I'm making basically $5.25 an hour when I break it down. Well, it's not hourly, it's a contract for the summer, so we don't look at it as an hour. And, you know, in Jersey, Andy has a different battle with hourly wages, but that's a big challenge, you know, to go into an area where any area that the money's a big need, camp goes to the second step. But we've had some success in the city with connecting with guidance counselors in schools that will serve different populations, you know, that not the regular camp population that's just so homogeneous. To find people that want to work with kids, that want to go into phys ed, that want the experience, and it's less the job and it's more the experience. And that's where we've been successful. And since we do offer busing, you know, for many, that's a big pro, because they don't have to worry about subways or cars or taxis. They hop on one of our buses, they get taken to camp, they get home, and they get out of the city for, you know, the full day. So that's where we've been successful, is going to schools and connecting with guidance counselors to find kids that really want to be around kids.
I love that.
Yes, we started something a couple of years ago that one of our members of staff teaches lifeguarding in their school in the Bronx. And now every summer we get 6 or 8 kids. So it's like, come do a lifeguarding course and you're basically guaranteed a job. And then we actually run a bus, it's just a small minibus back and forward to get them. And oh, it's wonderful to see. You know, it's great. They're, you know, really, you know, it just, these kids are either African American or Hispanic, and it's they're here working, and you know, sometimes they think they're at camp themselves, because it's just so, it's not the, even though they're still in high school, it's just not the summers that they used to have. And so, you know, like
Yeah.
if it, like all these things, you have to get the right guidance counselor and the right, you know,
Yeah,
teacher in the right
connections,
school,
no doubt,
the
are
right
big.
connections. But yeah, that's it's if you can get into 2 or 3 different schools at that, it's and then they just keep coming year after year. And then it just
Well,
becomes
because
part of,
it's a big thing with young people is they're going to work where their friends work, and that's a big thing in diversity of the staff. Is it's hard to get like one person of a minority to jump in when they don't have any friends there, right? That's a huge step. This is something I talk about this topic all the time, and we're going to have a future podcast just on this topic with Shanika Perry and Lance Ozier, who, like, this is their life's work, is talking about this sort of stuff. But thanks for bringing that up. All right, so we're going to about to wrap up. So I want you guys to think of one cool sleepaway camp thing, all right, that people could bring to their camps to do. All right, I'll go first. Okay. You know, special eventy kind of thing that you could do as a 1-day special eventy or kind of thing, or whatever. It could even be backwards day. And by the way, backwards day, more than just walking backwards and dressing backwards. All right. You got to have dessert first at lunchtime. Very important. All right. The kids love that. All right. Very big. All right. So anyway, a lot of people who went, you all know what capture the flag is, right? But there are variations of capture the flag that are really, really intense. And if you look up capture the flag online for various ways where people have like quadrants and you got to stay in your areas and stuff. I mean, at my sleepaway camp, they called it the wide game because they literally used the entire camp as the area. It was like, you know, guerrilla war, like urban warfare, like through the bunks and stuff like that. But capture the flag is just one of those things. Again, we're talking about Gaga and Foursquare and all these kind of things where people, kids need this kind of sort of running around, they have like their specific rules, but there's ways in and around it, and the rules can be modified and this and that, right? So I think capture the flag is just a great one of those things. Anybody want to go up next?
Yeah, I think another one, Andy, is what sleepaway camps do really well is the 1-day Olympics or quest or any, whatever you want to call it, not like a 4-day huge event, but the 1 day when half the staff are off on days off, so you have to do something that everyone's together. So doing like a 1 day where it's not just 2 teams, but 6 teams competing, and you don't have to change the activities. You could compete when you're at swim, you're competing for team yellow. And when you go to soccer, you're playing against other teams, and it culminates in 1 day and finishes in 1 day. So whatever day you're there, whatever week you're there, it becomes whatever you want. And there could be a story. I think the other piece that really works well at day camp that we took from sleepaway camp is stories behind it all. So how did this start? So at my sleepaway camp, quest was always about the winning team. Their quest was for the golden arches. So think about 20 years ago, the winning team, we took them to McDonald's. You know, that was their prize. Now I think it would be like no one would want to win. They'd all say, forget it. We want Chick-fil-A or Taco Bell. But it's having a story to why you're doing the day, what it is behind it, doing it all in 1 day, getting all the spirit out, and then going home and finishing it up after that day.
Right. And of course, you know, color war is one of these kind of things like that, which we could just do a whole episode on.
Yeah,
and
sure.
if you don't like war because, you know, you don't like war and all, you know, a lot of camps do Olympics and they have different words for these kind of things.
College days.
And you could have 2 teams, you could have 3 teams, you could have 12 teams, just like Sam said. And that kind of thing, that is very sleepaway campy kind of stuff. But before we go on to the next one, I forgot about my friends from CRS. Tiff, thanks for reminding me. CRS, the water, the people, the splash pads, the dunk tanks, all that kind of fun stuff, the SUPs. and they also have, pretty much anything for your waterfront. So, they're talking about the kayaks and the pedal boards and the corkles. If you don't know what a corkle is, look it up.
Corkles are great.
Corcls. Very cool. They are the distributors of that. Can't destroy the corkles. And then also, the life vests and everything around there, the waterfront safety. And one thing they have a lightning detector, which is pretty interesting as well. So anyway, CRS, all right, check them out at crs4rec.com. All right, thanks y'all. All right, who's got another one?
I've got one. So with those special events, Sam, you mentioned this year we had to go cheaper. I'm a park district, so I always have to be cheap. But you can find, to make that ambiance, to make the whole day, like Gordon was saying, a theme, and everything about the day is going with the event. We have a distributor nearby that we roped into donating very large cardboard that we use for our backdrops for the talent show, props, carbo boat regatta. If you're doing a superhero day, we built the phone booth that Superman changes in, and we always do a thing where you can pop your head in and take a picture. You've painted the cardboard a certain character, and they can pop their heads in and take different pictures. So you can make some of your special events traditional, and they look forward to these like 4 events during the summer. They know they're going to get to do those, like the talent show or the carbo boat regatta, and then always throwing in the new ones so that there's something new and exciting to look for. But the cardboard, there's got to be a distributor near you. It's sturdier than refrigerator boxes, and you can use it for a million things.
No doubt. We've talked about yacht or not in the past. The cardboard boat regatta is certainly rules.
Well, I have a quick one. This is not necessarily from Sleepaway Camp, but it is Sleepaway Camp-esque, I think. There's a museum, a children's museum in Wisconsin, and they do like a New Year's like ball drop at noon on New Year's, and all the kids come dressed up in their pajamas, like they're like counting down to midnight,
That's
because
cool.
kids sleep, whatever. So we do that in the summer. We do like Christmas in July, but we also do like New Year's because all the kids are not there during our school year programming, and so we come dressed in like it's like pajama day, but it's literally like a slumber party. So all day long we would do all the things that we would do all night long. So we watch movies, we make popcorn, and it's literally just like a slumber party during the day, and that's the closest camp play ever gets to Sleepaway Camp.
That's a great idea.
That's very cool. Great
I'll
idea.
use that one.
They always like, maybe because it's just so simple, but just anytime the kids can just wear their pajamas to school or to camp, it's going to be a success.
Yeah,
Why do you think Hugh Hefner wore a bathrobe? It's just more comfortable, right? Never have to change out.
The last time we had pajama day, we forgot that we scheduled an intercamp against another team, and we sent like 2 buses of kids in their pajamas to another camp to play sports against another team. That was great.
Tiff, do you do a toast at noon? Do your countdown and your toast?
We do. Yeah,
Ginger ale, baby. Ginger ale.
I don't know if it's culturally appropriate, but we toast it up. We play music. We have a dance party. We go crazy.
No kissing, right, Tiffany? You hold the line there.
No kissing. No mistletoes. No kissing. None of that.
Now we're getting good at elbow bumping. So that's all right. So I want to thank the Go Camp Pro team, AM Skyer, commercial recreation specialist, for allowing us to bring this podcast for you. If you like what you hear, you should subscribe to the Day Camp Pod on your favorite podcast platform. Check out our show notes from this and other episodes at daycamppodcast.com, as well as contact information for our show, for Sam, for Gordon, for Sam. We had 2 Sams. I didn't even realize that. And Tiff at daycamppodcast.com, as I said. Thanks for listening and making yourself a better day camp professional. We'll be back next week with a mini pod, and in 2 weeks with another full episode of the Day Camp Pod.